Welcome to Epic New Swift.
Now, Maruti Suzuki launched the Swift back in 2005, and the rest, as they say, is history. A history that you don't need me to tell you again. But the story is that the Maruti Suzuki Swift was a runaway success. But the question that we are asking today is, what was the magic sauce that went into making the Swift the success that it is today, and whether Maruti have been able to recreate that magic sauce 4 generations, 19 years and 29 lakh cars later. This is our review of the 2024 Swift. You're watching Auto Today. My name is Dipayan. Let's jump straight into our review. First ingredient, of course, is design, and Maruti Suzuki have been able to keep that alive with this iconic silhouette. Now, the 2024 Swift is an all-new car, but what stands out is that it is instantly recognizable as a Swift while being a totally new generation with some really cool design elements. Now, the coolest thing up front, of course, is this new body line which integrates the bumper that comes up all the way up here, giving it that clamshell-like effect. Now, harking back to the original design of the Swift are these headlamps that are swept back, but I love the fact that they're integrated into the bumper, giving it that really low, cool vibe. Of course, you get a DRL and LED projectors on this top model variant. The LEDs are boomerang. You get an inside fog lamp, and you get this gloss black grille, which looks pretty cool, but I would have preferred a matte option as well. Now, one of the really cool features are as you move to the side. Once you step on the profile, you're going to get a sense of why the 2024 Swift looks so stance, and it has a lot to do with this shoulder line that runs so low along the body, giving it that really compact low to the ground effect, and I think it looks so cool, and the fact that it's so prominent gives it a very strong character, and I love that about the new Swift. Of course, you do have 15-inch rims. You get a new design for the rims, and I think they look pretty good. But that aside, you do get a blacked out roof like in previous generations of the Swift, and then you step to the back, which is the most recognizable and the coolest thing about the new Swift. Let's head to the back. One of the things I love about the Swift is the rear profile. Now, one of the things that you get from that low shoulder line that we showed you in profile are these squat haunches that give it that really wide set rear look, and it makes the Swift look that much cooler. Now, of course, you get an LED tail lamp at the back, and you get an inside DRL that is very similar to the one at the front in reverse, and I think that's really cool. You also get a slightly lower loading lip for the bumper, which should make loading things into the boot a lot easier. And of course, the bumper itself has been reprofiled, and now you get a little more sinews, a little more angles, and it comes together as a very cohesive but attractive rear end. And I think overall, it's come together as a really cool new car that retains the silhouette and the iconicness of the original Swift. Now, it's time, of course, to get behind the wheel and tell you what it's like on the inside and what it's like to drive. Now, for this 4th generation, of course, the cabin has been entirely redesigned. Now, it is all black, but I love the way that Maruti have played with textures and colors to make it seem a little less boring and a little more youthful and exciting, like this silver accent that runs along the center console and along the door panels. I think it looks really cool. You get new seats, and there is really good bolstering both for the back and for the thighs, and the seats more or less are really comfortable. In fact, it has quite a nice curb, and you will enjoy spending long hours in it. Now, a lot has changed, including this new infotainment system, which is a floating unit like we've seen on the Baleno. You also get a wireless charging pad, which is really cool. You get 2 cup holders over here, and when we step in the back, you'll get a little more sense of the comfort features. But from the driver's perspective, you get this new steering wheel, which is flat bottom and of course uses a piano black and rubberized finish to look slightly more premium than your average hatchback. I love the fact that Maruti have kept the pod concept for the instrument cluster, which means you get an analog tacho and an analog speedometer, analog dials for both the engine temperature and the fuel gauge. You do get a small MIDI screen in the center. It is not the most modern screen, but it gets the job done and it integrates well into the dashboard and it looks really cool. You also get climate control with an auto function, and you get front and rear defoggers as well. And I think the entire design, despite being all black, is really cohesive, and it's set against this white roof, which helps improve the feeling of spaciousness and the airiness of the cabin. Of course, you also get this really nice glass window effect, which adds to the spaciousness and the feeling of spaciousness inside the Swift. Now let's step in the second row and see what the Swift is like from there. Into the second row, and you are going to feel that the Swift does lack a little bit on space. The rear bench does lack a lot of squab and under thigh support. My thighs, as you can see, are almost half of the seat. Knee room is also going to be a little bit of a problem, and because of that sloping roof line, you're going to get a little bit of lack of headroom as well. But that said, the seats are pretty comfortable, and you do get this center AC vent and 2 fast charging ports at the back for you. It is not the most comfortable second row in the world, but that said, it does beat a lot of hatchbacks by a fair margin, and I think that is going to stand out for the Swift when it comes to the sales charts. The rear seat does split 60-40, so in case you're carrying more luggage, that is a very useful feature to have. It also gets ISOFIX seats at the back, which is great if you have kids and you want to fit a car seat. That said, that's about it from the cabin of the Swift. Let's get behind the driver's wheel and tell you what this Swift is like to drive, not just with the manual gear option, but also with the AMT. And now finally to the juicy bits. We are finally behind the wheel of the 4th generation of the Swift, and there's a lot to unpack. Starting with the motor. Now you still get a 1.2 litre motor, but this time it's not the K series motor. It's not a 4-cylinder motor. In fact, this is a brand new Z series 3-cylinder motor. Now the motor is on paper down on both torque and power, meaning it makes 81 horsepower and 111 Nm of torque. And if you're going to be reading the brochure, you're probably going to be a little disappointed. But before you get disappointed, there is something that you have to know, that Maruti have really worked on the way this motor is tuned and the way it delivers torque. Now, if you remember the older K generation motors, it was really flat on the initial, just as you're getting off the line. But where this Z series motor shines is that low-end torque, and that is something that you're going to really feel in the city. Now, if you've driven the previous Swift, you are going to find this motor more engaging, more torquey, and having much better acceleration than before, which makes it engaging to drive. Now, you will get 2 gearbox options. This, what we are driving right now, is the 5-speed manual, but you also get a 5-speed AMT. We will hop into that one shortly after this and tell you what that is like to drive. Now, one of the things that have changed on this new 4th generation of the Swift, and one of the things that make it so rewarding to drive, especially in this manual spec, is the new hydraulic clutch, which is that much lighter than the clutch on the previous car and will make driving in the city a whole lot easier. And aside from that are these great gates on this 5-speed gearbox with nice short throws, and each of them is positive and it feels like the gates are well defined, so you always get a really nice feeling of every single shift, and that makes the Swift in its 4th generation all that more engaging to drive. But let's unpack a little more about the Swift and the way it drives and handles. Now, one of the things I really like is that suspension setup that manages to balance a comfortable ride and solid handling. Now, this does have a lot to do with the hardtech platform that underpins it and makes it very stiff. It also has to do with where the tires are placed. Now, Like a go-kart, the Swift has its tires towards each corner, and that gives you that really sharp direct handling. And because all of the weight is well centered, it really goes around corners and you can really push this car even if you're down on power and torque. So in my opinion, I think the Swift has become that much better to drive. Now, the one thing that I did forget to mention when we were covering the cabin of the new Swift is the infotainment system that now gets Android Auto and Apple CarPlay both activated wirelessly, which is really cool. It also gets the premium sound by Maruti, which really makes the aural experience from inside the cabin a whole lot better. Now, of course, let's jump into the AMT and see what that is like to drive and what benefits that brings. Now, before we do that, of course, let's quickly talk about efficiency, because that Maruti have really managed a big triumph, especially in the AMT. Now, this 5-speed manual is rated for an efficiency of 24.8 kilometers to a liter ARAI, but it's the automatic that is more efficient with 25.6 kmpl ARAI claimed figures, which is really good for an automatic and inside the city. Now, that is something that should really make the Swift that much more attractive to its buyers, for not only being a really cool car and a nice punchy car to drive, but also bringing that efficiency to the table, where you're getting almost 900 kilometers to a tank, both from the automatic and the manual. Now, one of the things that I love about the Swift, and it's going to make it so easy to drive in the city, is the steering itself. Now, it is light, but it weighs up perfectly at speed to make it engaging. And the other thing that I really like is the turning radius of the Swift, which is just so tight that you can turn it almost on a dime, even in the narrowest roads in the city. And that is something that makes it that much better in an urban vehicle than ever before. And now you're joining me inside the new Swift, but with the 5-speed AMT, and we're going to take it for a drive and tell you how much is different. Now, you of course get the 5-speed AMT with a manual shifter, but let's find out how it is to drive and how much different from the manual it is. Now, straight up, the first thing I'm going to realize is that it is pretty nice off the line. The shifts are a little slow, like you do still get that head bob in between shifts. Switch it to manual mode and it is slightly better, but there is still a lack of responsiveness, which is typical of an AMT gearbox paired with a car that is sub 100 bhp. It's something that we've seen, but what stands out to me is the way Maruti have tuned this in such a way that you not just get the comfort and convenience of a 2-pedal drive, but you also get more mileage than the manual version, which means that technically you have more range in your automatic Swift than you do in the manual. And that is saying something, and it's going to incentivize a lot of customers who are on the fence about the Swift to buy one, and buy one in automatic. Now, for 2024, the Swift has gotten slightly more expensive. It's got a boatload of new features and it's got this really cool new styling package. But the question that we are here to answer today is whether this 4th generation of the Swift retains the magic that it had in 2005, what made it a runaway success right from the day it was launched. And I think the answer to that is a resounding yes. Now, it's got the style and that iconic silhouette, albeit in an reimagined and reborn package that really stands out. It's got all the creature comforts and features on the inside that you would need, not only from this segment, but from a segment just above it as well. Now, despite the fact that the engine is slightly down on power, I think Maruti have got the tune just right, and it's got that low down torque which really makes it engaging to drive. It is still a great handler, and that is something that continues to work for this 4th generation of Swift. I think that as a cohesive all-round package, the Swift really comes out as a very, very strong competitor in the hatchback space, and I think it will continue to be a resounding success, just like the car that started it in 2005. That's it from me. This is Didi signing off.